A very good evening, friends. Welcome to this edition of Filter Coffee with author Abhijit Joag and myself for the Verandah Club. The book here is Asatyameva Jayate. The author talks in great detail and in a very lucid manner about the treachery with which Indian history has been dealt with and pushed down on each of us and made generations of apologetic Indians and so on and so forth. The invaders, particularly the imperials, deliberately obfuscated our history, and there has been a very strong attempt, and partly they have been successful, to bring out this apologetic nature in all of us and create a nation of self-loathing copycats without any self-respect. Fortunately, in the last few years, things are changing. Falsehood, the journey of this book is about the busting the myths and moving from the falsehood to the truths. Asatoma Sadgamaya. Welcome, sir. Thank you so much in busting this intellectual tyranny and bringing to fore the courageous historians through and their untiring research in a very concise and lucid manner. The first chapter deals with the Aryan invasion theory and about how the fault lines have been, the narrative. One is the narrative setting, and the other is how the fault lines were created and how these fault lines, and through the nefarious designs by the Breaking India forces, these fault lines have been amplified and used to divide us and rule over us. I would like to start this session with a quote that the great about how the great Orientalist and scholar of Sanskrit Horace Hayman Wilson between 1786 and 1860 says about the arrival of the British in India. It is their comments. It was, quote, it was to a certain extent the reunion of the great Aryan family with the aim of civilizing and Christianizing India. This was the attempt. And also another quote about how Macaulay took the assistance of Frederick Max Muller to this end. Then Max Muller wrote, India has been conquered once, but India must be conquered again. And the second conquest should be a conquest by education. This is exactly the point how our education system has churned out millions of people who are taught wrong history and resulted in a generation of apologetic Indians. A very well thought out, nefarious design by Max Muller and Macaulay, I must say, sir. Please, sir, you may add a few,
yeah.
Sure. Take us through your
Thank you, Mr. Jagannathan. It is very nice to be on your show. And happy Republic Day to you and all the
viewers. Of course, happy Republic Day, sir.
And I'm happy that at least in the Azadi Ka Amrut Mahotsav, we are talking about the true history of India, better late than never. As far as this nefarious design of creating a false story is concerned, we have to go back a little bit. When the Britishers first came to India in 1614, Sir Thomas Roe came to the Darbar of Badshah Jahangir and asked for a permission to trade in India. And once they got the permission, they opened their centers in Madras, Calcutta, and Surat. And their initial effort was only to make money in India, basically. So at that time, many Britishers who came to India as in the service of East India Company, they initially were totally speechless with the impact, with the greatness and richness of Indian civilization. And they realized that Sanskrit and all other Indian languages And most of the European languages have huge similarity. It's not a superficial similarity, but it's a structural similarity. And they also knew that Sanskrit is the oldest language among all these languages, and Rigved is the oldest literature in the world. So they kind of accepted that the flow of culture and language has moved from India to the West. So Voltaire, who was a great French philosopher, he has gone on record saying that the European civilization was born on the banks of the Ganges. So initially they knew that actually culture and language has flown from India to Europe. But by about 1750, when they started winning wars in India, like 1757, they won the war of Plassey. By 1888, they defeated the Marathas. And then they realized that now they can rule in India for a long time. So their ambition moved from trade to political hegemony. And then they had this, they were in a fix that earlier they had accepted that Indian civilization is great. Sanskrit is probably the mother of all European and Asian languages. Now they had to wriggle out of this praise that they had lavished on Indian ancient civilization. So to wriggle out of that situation, they created this unique solution called as Aryan invasion theory. So they said that, okay, your Sanskrit language is really wonderful and Vedas are the oldest literature, but that has not been created by you, but it was created by people coming from the West who were white with golden hair and blue eyes and things like that. So basically they never wanted to accept the culture of their slaves to be superior to their culture. So they found out this unique solution called Aryan invasion theory, by which they could say that, okay, your language is good, your culture is great, but it has been created by the Westerners, Europeans, white people. Then they said that your science and technology and philosophy and literature and poetry and everything, you learned only when you got in touch with Greeks. When Alexander attacked you and you got in touch with the Greeks, you learned all these things from them. And now we have come, again, Europeans, and we are going to teach you the new thought and new technology and railway and post office and everything. So whatever good you have, it has always been given by the Europeans. So you should have no qualms about being the slaves of the British. That was the, in short, message that they wanted to give. And to create a foundation for their rule in India, a moral foundation for the rule in India, they created this story, this fabulous idea called Aryan invasion theory, which never had any single evidence. Even that time they didn't have any evidence. Till today they don't have any evidence. But still it has been shoved down our throat as the official history. And as you rightly said, it has created a huge fault line in our society. It has created a lot of divisions like North versus South, Hindi versus Tamil, upper caste versus lower caste, Adivasis versus everybody else. So the base of all these quarrels is nothing but Aryan invasion theory. So that is why I always say that this is the mother of all distortions. Aryan invasion theory is the mother of all distortions in our history, because from that has flown all these fault lines and they have been deliberately amplified.
Very true, sir. Very rightly put. Mother of all distortions. In fact, there is one part in the book, in several parts in the book, where you have used examples to bust several myths that have surrounded this Aryan invasion theory. One is a very interesting bit I would like to read out from page number 56, where even the horse has finally let them down, where A. Ghosh writes in the Encyclopedia of Indian Archaeology, in India, remains of horses have been dug up at Neolithic sites in Kodaikanal, Hallur, Mohenjo-daro, Ropar, Harappa, Lothal, and many others. हम तो यही सीखा गया था कि कोडाइकनाल was discovered by Americans and Ooty by Britishers. It is the only American hill station, and probably something in northern part of India was American hill station. But here we have horses dating back to probably several hundred years back. So this is something several thousand years back. So this is a great eye opener, sir. And our civilization has always been Sanatana centric, meaning always nature centric. We have been one with the nature, aligned with the nature, and rivers have always helped us, shape and build our civilization and progress. So you have dwelt very well with the Saraswati River, and how it impacted how the Saraswati River drying up impacted the civilization, how the migration happened. Please elaborate, sir. It's very interesting. The readers should hear it from you.
Conclusive evidence that Aryan invasion theory is fake. Saraswati River is probably the most important river in Rigveda. So rishis who composed Rigveda, for them Saraswati was like their mother, their goddess, everything. In Saraswati, in Rigveda, Saraswati is mentioned at least 90 times, whereas Ganga is mentioned only 4 or 5 times. So you will realize how much importance they attach to Saraswati, because Rigvedas were composed on the banks of the Saraswati, which is the areas which was called as Brahmavarta at that time, which today corresponds with Kurukshetra. And Saraswati was flowing from that area. And Rigveda mentions Saraswati as a very mighty river. They say that it comes down from Himalayas, breaking the big rocks like as if it were they were the stems of lotus flower. So they have written a very eulogizing term about River Saraswati, and they have described it as a very mighty river flowing from Himalayas to the sea throughout the year. And now we know that Saraswati became extinct in around 1900 BC. So that's why the Sindhu Saraswati civilization, which actually is the apt name for Indus Valley civilization, because 75% of the sites of that civilization are on the banks of Saraswati, which is today it is a dried paleo channel of Gaggar Akra river, but which was the ancient Saraswati, which now most of the scholars, in fact all the scholars now agree. So if Saraswati dried in 1900 BC, and Sindhu Saraswati civilization then became extinct, it is in no way possible, as Max Muller said, that Aryans came in 1500 BC and composed Rigveda in 1200 BC, because Rigveda, which describes Saraswati as a mighty river, wouldn't have been composed 700 years after Saraswati became extinct. So this one evidence is enough to completely bust the myth of Aryan invasion or Aryan migration or whatever they want to say. So Saraswati is very important as far as this conversation goes, and that is why the people who want to continue to impose this theory even today, they somehow want to deny that Saraswati was actually a river. They still say that it is a mythical river, and whereas there are hundreds of evidences from NASA imagery to ISRO imagery, everything has conclusively proved that Saraswati was a very big river. Some of the images taken from the satellites show the paleo channel as 16 kilometers wide. So you can imagine how big the river was. At some places it is 12 kilometers wide. And when the drilling was done in that paleo channel, there was potable water found. And that water belonged to about 10,000 BC, or even before that. And after that, there was water which was only the monsoon water. Before 10,000 BC, it was water which was coming from the Himalayas. So it's a big story which I have written in the book. That initially the part of Yamuna and part of Satluj was meeting Saraswati. And both these rivers are originating in the Himalayas, and they have a perennial source of water, and that's why Saraswati was a very mighty river. But because Himalaya is a very unstable geography even today, Satluj as well as Yamuna, instead of flowing into Saraswati, they changed their direction. Yamuna went towards Ganga and Satluj went towards Sindhu or Indus. And that's why Saraswati started becoming weaker and weaker. And in the year 2200 BC, all over the world, there was a very big drought. And that's why slowly it became completely extinct. And that's why the Sindhu Saraswati civilization also ended. So to say that Rigveda was composed in 1200 BC, which Max Muller and supporters of this theory say, is actually a big joke. And that disproves that this theory is, it disproves this theory basically and completely rubbishes it, I would say.
Very true, sir. History can be distorted by historians, but the two G's, which is genetics and geography, can be used to very clearly debunk the Aryan invasion theory, which you have wonderfully done in your book, sir. How about the genetics and the geography you have explained, sir? You have dwelt with the genetic part also, the R1A1 gene theory. What is your, the readers would like to, participants would like to hear it from you, sir.
Actually, the supporters of this theory have always flaunted the example of R1A1, which is found in people who speak Indo-European languages, right from Europe to India. And they had presumed that because this is found in people from Europe, Eastern Europe and Western Europe, Europeans must have migrated to India, and through them R1A1 gene must have come to India. But now, in the latest research conducted by Neeraj Rai, who is the head of Birbal Sahani Institute of Paleontology, it has been found that the highest diversity of R1A1 is found in India. And as per genetics, wherever you find the biggest diversity, the gene is supposed to be originating in that place. Like human genes, maximum diversity of human genes is found in Africa. And that's why we say that man originated in Africa. So R1A1, now he has proved that diversity in India is almost 3 times that of Eastern Europe and Western Europe. So it is very clear that that gene was, that gene originated in India. And that is why the so-called Indo-European group of people also originated in India, and then they migrated from India to the West. There is another marker called M17, which is also associated with the Indo-European group of people. And there is a scientist called Stephen Oppenheimer. He has also found out that this M17 originated in India 51,000 years ago. So, to deep antiquity actually. And there is no way that this could have come from people migrating from Europe to India. It has migrated from India to Europe through Kashmir, Central Asia, Eastern Europe, and then Western Europe. So scientists from the field of genetics have again found enough evidences to say that Aryan migration theory is completely debunked, but out of India theory definitely has a lot of support. So genetics, again, it's a science which can't be wrong. It conclusively proves that culture and language flowed from India to the West, not the other way around.
Absolutely, sir. The Sanatana system followed by our ancestors for thousands of years and millenniums, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, through the various cultures, traditions, festivals, practices, small little events, just come to show how united we have been. Now we go to the second chapter, sir, which dwells on how Indian history has been portrayed as a story of defeats, and more so it is projected as a Delhi-centric, even more so a Mughal-centric. People conveniently, I for one never studied the Ahom kings, rulers, Lachit Borpokhan, I was, to be very honest, I came to know only 5, 6 years back. So that is the level of distortion that has happened, gone through the years, sir. And we have always been apologetic while competing. I like to quote from page number 107, which I liked. Chappell, the former captain of the Australian cricket team, had once said, "In our times, India had talented players, but their attitude was almost apologetic while competing." This apologetic mindset has literally ruined a lot of our progress, I must say, sir. In the later part of the book, you dwell upon how big tech companies, big giant companies are not there, but of course, we are still happy with the way we go about. But had we been more assertive, more unapologetic, we can imagine how, as a country, we would have progressed much, much before, sir. Sir, I would like to request you to elaborate on how Alexander faced defeat in India and what was the old world order and how India fared then as a strong nation.
Actually, Alexander was winning everything that came in his way, right from coming from Greece through Persia to India. And he had scored some famous victories, and they are part of military folklore actually. But when he came to India, he faced stiff resistance from the tribes on the northwest area of India. And when he came up to the border of India, he faced King Porus, or actually Puru. It was a very small kingdom. It was not like a Persian kingdom, which Alexander practically overran. It was a very small kingdom. But Puru put up such a great fight that there was an absolute kind of dogfight, you can say, that the pendulum was swinging from one end to the other. And there is a kind of historians don't agree actually what happened. Greek historians say that, and especially the British historians say that Alexander won. And many other historians say that Porus won. So probably we can conclude that it could be kind of a drawn match in the cricketing parlance. But there is unanimity on one thing, that this was the toughest battle that Alexander and his army had to fight. I've quoted the Greek historian saying that the kind of celebration that Alexander's soldiers made after the war was over was much bigger than the celebration that they did when they won against the Persian Empire, which was a much bigger victory actually, because Persian Empire was a much, much bigger empire than the small kingdom of Kuru. But this fight was so tough that they were happy to get over with it. And after that, actually, he had ambitions to come into India and capture the whole country. But this fight was so bruising that his soldiers flatly denied. They said that we have no morale left now to go further into India. And this was such a small empire. In mainland India, there was big Nanda Empire, which was waiting for Alexander. And they had no guts to go inside and fight such a big army after facing such tremendous resistance from Puru. And Alexander had the reputation that whosoever he defeated, he either killed or made him his kind of what do you call gulam jisko bolte, that kind of treatment he used to give. But with Puru, he behaved in a completely different manner. He treated him with a lot of respect. He gave him gifts. In fact, gave him a part of empire of Ambi, who had joined with him. Ambi and Porus had some quarrel, and Ambi had actually helped Alexander. तो उसके kingdom में से कुछ area उसने पुरु को दे दिया. he treated him completely differently, which was very unique in his entire history of warfare. With all other kings, he behaved totally in a different manner, and with Puru, he behaved in a completely different manner. A lot of respect, a lot of appreciation. So that shows that Porus was definitely not defeated. Most probably, he actually defeated Alexander, or it was a drawn match. And then Alexander had to return from India's border only. So whatever we have been told that India's history is a history of defeats, that completely is again gets completely debunked, because this first big battle which India had to fight with foreigners, India didn't lose. In fact, I have quoted one battle which was even before that, which Semiramis, who was the Assyrian queen, and she had defeated many other kingdoms in Egypt and Mesopotamia and things like that. And she also wanted to conquer India. She attacked India, and she was delivered a crushing defeat by a king called Satyavrat. So right from 810 BC, India never lost to foreigners. So what we have been told that people came from the West, they kept defeating Indians and making them slaves, and our history is a history of defeats, which is a complete lie. So I think that is what we have to understand, and that has played havoc with our psyche. Like you quoted the example of Ian Chappell. We have become self-loathing, no confidence, inferiority complex, kind of apologetic about our existence. All that has come because of this wrong history, that India's history has been a history of defeats. So that is what we have to completely wipe out now, actually.
Then you dwell with how the Turks and the likes of Genghis Khan and the Islamic invasions happened. And there is a very nicely put paragraph I would like to read out, sir. How did this miracle happen? We may observe from world history that whenever a military force achieved an unexpected or astonishing result, it had some new technique or technology of warfare at its command. Before the enemy could recover from the effects of the novel technique, the battle was won. Genghis Khan's Mughal soldiers, when they swept across Asia and Europe in the 13th century, they had developed the technique of rapidly and accurately shooting arrows while galloping on horsebacks, which created complete chaos among the enemy ranks. Clive's disciplined force of just 3,000 men, equipped with most advanced weaponry of the time, could rout Siraj-ud-Dowlah's army of 50,000 at Plassey only because of superior military techniques. So this ragtag enemy assortment, how they fought, and what was the lessons or secrets of these success? Three things that you note, sir. One is morale, motivation, and strategy. So this is also something very interesting that our rulers then learned and built on it. But perhaps where we were all the more, we were very superior in our thought and action. Our dharma in Sanatana tradition means honorable thought. So this honorable thought was always an elevated principle which no other civilization perhaps had. But this is again the advent of Kali Yuga, which the enemy misused and took advantage of. Then so the principles of Dharma Yuddha could not succeed with the other mix. So this is what some part of history we can learn, and that is when Chanakya arrives. So please elaborate on Chanakya, sir, for us.
Actually, righteousness is the essence of our dharma. Whatever you do, you have to do in the righteous manner. And even war is not an exception to that. And that is the concept of Dharma Yuddha. But when you have to fight barbarians who have no rules, no values, nothing. They are willing to do anything to demolish your temples, to rape your women and take them to the slave market. Then Dharma Yuddha concept doesn't really work, and that is one thing which really harmed us when we faced the invading Islamic armies. And probably in India's history, Chanakya was the only person who said that you have to also make use of Kuta Yuddha. Kuta Yuddha is, use whatever means you can to defeat the enemy, because you stand for truth and dharma. The barbarians stand for plunder and rape and things like that. So for dharma to win, like Chanakya said that, even Krishna said that in Mahabharata, that when you are fighting adharma, you have to also sometimes make use of Kuta Yuddha. So Krishna, Chanakya, and in the Middle Ages, I think Shivaji Maharaj was the one who used this Kuta Yuddha against the Islamic imperialists. And that is where the defeat of Islam started. When Shivaji Maharaj started using Kuta Yuddha tactics, that is where we started winning. And that is the lesson of the history, I would say, that when you face barbarians, you have to also follow certain tactics, which may not in the normal times you would ever think of.
Absolutely, sir. Horses for courses.
Yes.
Sir, the other most important and interesting thing, especially in present day Indian politics, and more relevant to politics of Tamil Nadu, places like Maharashtra, maybe some other parts of India also, is how the ideals, thoughts, writings of Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar has been distorted, misinterpreted, and completely twisted to convenience and play on the fault lines, sir. This is something which has gone unaddressed, and the other mix are running amok unabated. And you have very concisely summarized the most ideal parts which need to be told to the world about Baba Saheb Ambedkar's views on various matters which concern India at large today, sir. Please.
Actually, Baba Saheb was a great scholar, and he was very honest to his scholarship. So whenever he found certain truth, he never tried to obfuscate it or twist it to suit his narrative. So he has really castigated some practices in Hinduism in no uncertain terms, and he was right in doing that. We all agree to that. But at the same time, whenever he found that certain things have been misrepresented, he was the first one to come out very solidly, clearly, and concisely to refute those things. Like Aryan invasion theory, for example. He has, in no uncertain terms, in very, very plain language, he has said that this is all, to use the unparliamentary word, bullshit. He has not said that, but he actually meant that, I think. Similarly, he has very nicely described how Varna system in India was not based on birth, but based on worth, which, coming from Baba Saheb, is a big surprise, because everybody thinks that he has always attacked Hinduism. But that is not the case. Whatever practices deserved to be attacked, he has attacked. But he has equally accepted and openly supported certain things that were very good in our tradition. So how Varna system was practiced in ancient India, Baba Saheb writes, very difficult to believe. He says that all the boys and girls had to study for 12 years in Gurukul. After that, all of them, unka thread ceremony hota tha, boys and girls both. And then based on their attitude, aptitude, their knowledge, their intelligence, the gurus gave them the varna. That somebody who is very research oriented, studious, he was given the varna of Brahman. Somebody who was brave, with a lot of fighting spirit, he was made Kshatriya, so on and so forth. So it was never a birth-based system, it was a worth-based system, which today nobody knows, nobody talks about it, and everybody quotes Baba Saheb to, further the division in the country. Similarly, his views about Islam are so radical that when you listen to him or read his views, you will think that some Hindutva, even they are even more radical than Hindutvadas. So you should read his book, Pakistan and the Partition of India, and whatever he has written about Muslims, I've quoted some of his thoughts, are so clear, crystal clear, and he actually doesn't pull any punches. Whenever he's sure of what he's saying, he will say that in a very, very strong words. So I have captured all this in my book, and I really admire Baba Saheb as a scholar.
Absolutely, sir. And there have been many unknown brave kings, queens of this great land who have, like I said, our homes. That was a kingdom, but even small kings, tinier kingdoms, smaller kingdoms, which were far more resilient, which have not been taught to us by the Delhi-centric history. You have covered well about the valor of Rani Naiki Devi, Maharana Kumbha, Rani Karnavati, Lachit Borphukan, and many others in bringing out how resilient India was then and how the religious and cultural identity remained indelible. It was always united. India was always a land of great culture and practice, very tolerant land, very dharmic. And there's a quote, very nice quote in page number 192. How did Hindu Dharma survive? Several reasons may be cited for explaining something that happened elsewhere, but did it not occur in India? How did Hinduism survive? The first reason was the enduring conviction that Hindus had for their dharma. The Hindu is intrinsically devout, and it was well nigh impossible for him to reject a tradition that had prevailed for thousands of years despite all the tyranny of allurement heaped upon him. As Mark Twain says, India is a great grandmother of tradition. Millennia old traditions and customs observed in every village and every home act as a bond to unite society. For example, the festival known as Godavari Mahapushkaran is held once in every 144 years on the banks of Godavari River. Again, we have been continuously with the water centric, because water is the elixir of life, of forefathers rightly understood. So this festival happens in the banks of the Godavari River in Andhra Pradesh. The last one was in the year 2015 during our lifetimes, and the one preceding that in the year 1871. How beautiful! How beautiful, sir!
Yes, actually, this deep-rooted traditions which have helped our dharma to survive is what I feel, because our people are so committed to these traditions. They are part of our DNA, and whosoever may be in power, he can't really disturb this faith and trust that we have in our traditions and our commitment to these traditions, and that has helped us to survive. Because why I say it is a kind of a miracle that Hinduism survived. If you go back a little bit, after the death of Muhammad Paigambar, they started campaigns for the spread of Islam in the year 634. Prophet Muhammad died in 632, and they started these campaigns in 634. And in a matter of 125 years, just 125 years, they completely subjugated a vast area right from Afghanistan on the east and Spain on the west. So you can imagine what a huge geographical area they won over in just 125 years. But even more miraculous than that is the fact that in just 250 years, including these 125 years, they made every person in this area accept Islam, and every person in this area accept Arabic language. Actually, this whole area was covered by two big mighty empires. One was Persian Empire and one was Byzantine Empire. And people in that area were speaking languages like Persian, Greek, Aramaic. All these languages were spoken, and by religion they were Parsis, Jews, Christians, and so on and so forth. Egypt people in Egypt used to speak Greek and follow Jew and Christianity, Judaism and Christianity. Today we can't even imagine. Egypt is today supposed to be a center of Islamic culture and Arabic language. We think that Egypt is an Arabic country. We think that Iraq is an Arabic country, but Iraq at that time was a part of Persian Empire. So in just 250 years, they made all these people to give up their religions and accept Islam, give up their languages and accept Arabic language. Whereas in India, even after 1100 years, neither could they win over the entire country politically, nor could they finish our religions or our languages. So I think that is the kind of resistance our people put. That mighty empires like Persian Empire and Byzantine Empire couldn't resist. But India at that time never had a big empire when the Islamic forces attacked. Gupta Empire was already extinct, and the country was divided in small empires like Gurjar Pratiyas, Rashtrakuts, and Palas, and things like that. But even these small empires and the small kings later on put up such a brave fight and such a huge resistance that compared to what happened in other parts of the world, it didn't happen in India. We didn't give in totally as far as political power is concerned, and we never gave up our religion and our language. So that is the biggest difference. India is like a sore thumb in the Islamic conquest for Islamists, because they think that in India we could never win over the entire country, and that is the thing that really troubles them even today. So that is the greatness of our dharma, that in spite of all odds, we could still survive.
Sir, these 3 lines in page number 197, I will probably put it up in a frame in my room. You have wonderfully put it, sir. India must remain ever grateful to those unknown village folk who risk their lives to light a lamp among the ruins of destroyed temples. Seriously, sir, even today that is a state. So for countless generations to come, fortunately we're sitting and doing an online thing so that there is a documented thing. Because for generations to come.
Hinduism we respect Sthana Mahatmya. So that place is important for us. So they destroyed the temples, but still our people kept on going to that place, because for us that place is pious. So, like Ramchandra, for example, they destroyed the temple and built a mosque. But still on Ramnavami, for hundreds of years, people used to still go there. And still thousands of people used to go there. So that place always remained important for us. And that's how we kept the flame of our dharma burning.
Brilliant. So the other chapter is a very, very interesting thing, which is true even today, especially with the opposition Congress party, which has been propagating negationism, pushing everything which is inconvenient under the carpet, brushing aside, appeasing the wrong things. So what is inconvenient never happened. That's a simple thing, simple concept of negationism. I would like to draw a parallel with the Kashmir files by Vivek Agnihotri, where Anupam Kher suffered, lost his home, thrown out, no words to say the suffering, came to Delhi, never told what happened to his grandson, and the rest is history. So negationism is a very, very dangerous thing. We should all be aware of it. Until the lion, as the African proverb goes, until the lion learns to write, every story will glorify the hunter. So the Congress party, even during the times of Jawaharlal Nehru and the vanguards of the Congress party, even till as recently as 2611, how they brushed aside the origin of terror in Mumbai and how they tried to paint it as Hindu terror, misinterpret it, wrongly portray the Hindu community and the Hindu faith is something which we should recall and ever remember. Luckily, that theory got dispelled. Yes, sir.
Actually, negationism is a concept which originated first in Germany. The Holocaust or the
Jews.
torture of Jews. There are some small groups who denied that Holocaust ever happened, and they have various reasons for that. Some of the neo-Nazis, as we may call them, they deny it. Communists also denied, and now Islamists also denied, saying that the story was created because they wanted to create the state of Israel. But all these groups that deny the Holocaust are the fringe elements, not from the mainstream. And denying Holocaust is in fact a crime in most of the European countries.
Yes, sir.
Punishable. It's an offense which is punishable. But in India, there are certain groups which negate the 1,000-year history of plunder, torture, rape, and throwing our people in the slave markets and destruction of temples and so on and so forth. They completely negate this. They say that nothing like this ever happened. They say that there was a wonderful Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb in which Hindus and Muslims lived in Bhaichara and things like that. And they denied that nothing like this ever happened. And biggest difference is that these deniers in India are the mainstream. They are not the fringe elements like in Europe. They are the mainstream. They are the people who have decided what is the official history of our country. So the same history has been taught to us, that nothing like this happened. And before independence and even after independence, there were three powerful lobbies who actually influenced our historiography. One was the Congress Party, of course. So their narrative on history was articulated by one M.N. Roy, who was actually a communist. He was in Congress Party for some time, and then he founded Indian Communist Party. But when he was in Congress, he articulated their narrative of history, and it was obviously as per the communist ideology and thinking. The second lobby was Islamist scholars who belonged to Deoband and Aligarh schools. Their history narrative was articulated by one Muhammad Habib, who was the father of Irfan Habib, the infamous person who masquerades as historian. Muhammad Habib was also a communist. So again, narrative about history of Islamists was again as per the communist narrative. And in Congress and in Free India, the discipline of history was completely handed over to the communists, right from the time of Jawaharlal Nehru, and especially after Indira Gandhi became the Prime Minister. Because in 1969, Indira Gandhi's government had lost the majority for some time, because Morarji Desai, Kamraj, and Nijalingappa and all these people have moved out. And to save her government, communists gave her the help. And in return of that, they said that give us only education ministry. We don't want finance ministry or home ministry or something like that. We only want education ministry. Because they knew that if they have to influence the minds of generations to come, they should control the education. Communists are very smart. And right from that time, the things like history, culture, art, all these things were kind of monopoly of communists. That's why the history writing in pre-independence India as well as post-independence India was completely controlled by these lobbies and primarily communists. And that is why this negationism persisted, because communists have a specific ideology. Their declared intention is that India should be broken into 16 parts.
Yes.
They don't believe in India's unity. And that's why anything that creates rifts in the country or create more and more fault lines in the country, that is what they want to implement. And especially as far as religions are concerned, they are extremely anti-Hinduism. That we all know that for various reasons. Now, this is not the place to discuss that, but they are so anti-Hindu, completely denied the unspeakable atrocities that Hindus had to undergo for 1,000 years. I think it's one of the, like Will Durant, the great
Yes.
American historian, has said that Islamic invasion of India is the bloodiest chapter of world history, not just Indian history, but the
Yes.
world history. So many scholars have accepted that, but in India we were taught that nothing like this happened. And that is It
was fueled by Nehru's thoughts, sir, which you have two quotes which you have given. Very interesting. We should all propagate this. The intense reservations Nehru had about Hindu culture may be best be gauged by what he said at the Lalit Kalakshetra Academy on 17th March 1959. Temples in the south repel me. I can't stand them. They are oppressive. They suppress my spirit. Oh God. Then, but speaking about the Taj Mahal at the same event, his love and adoration knew no bounds. The Taj Mahal is one of the most beautiful things anywhere, and it is a delight to the eye and to the spirit. There is hardly anything more that needs to be said, sir. You have, put it so succinctly, whatever Nehru quoted. So that has spawned the, negationism and so on and so forth.
Another example I can quote, small example, that he spoke about Muhammad Ghaznavi, and he said that he was so appreciative of the beauty of Krishna temple at Mathura that he described in great detail how beautiful this temple is. And he stopped there. But he doesn't speak about what Muhammad Ghazni did after this appreciation. He demolished that temple and cut a cow inside the temple. He only mentions how he was appreciative of the beauty of the temple. So that is negationism. Why do you want to hide certain things? There is no reason. Let people know. Let people form their own opinion. Why you want to give only a guided tour through history to the people? Only in one particular direction.
Perhaps Nehru was the first original historian of the post-independent India.
Because he was influenced. He had two main influences. He was influenced by the British. He was a quintessential Macaulay Putra. He was influenced by the left, communists. So both these influences made sure that he parroted the line of these two people, these two power groups, that Indian history was presented in one particular manner and one particular direction.
In the next chapter, you dwell upon how Emperor Ashoka and Akbar, were they really great, or was it the image versus reality? What was the difference? Was the imagery more fervent than the reality, sir? Please.
Actually, what happened is, after independence, Jawaharlal Nehru wanted to build his brand, as so to say, build his image on two pillars. One was non-violence, and one was Sarva Dharma Samabhava, or secular. These are the two pillars on which he wanted to build the brand, because he knew that the whole world was very impressed with Gandhiji's non-violent struggle, and he wanted to own that legacy. So non-violence was very important for him. And he selected Ashoka as the face of non-violence, and he selected Akbar as the face of secularism. And then he gave all the focus and importance to these two personalities from the history at the cost of all others. So Cholas are brushed aside, Ahoms are brushed aside, Pandyas are brushed aside, Rashtrakuts are brushed aside, Bappa Rawal is not mentioned, Lalitaditya is not mentioned. Everybody else is completely ignored. And as if in India there were only two great kings, Ashoka and Akbar, and their legacy is now being followed by Jawaharlal Nehru. So Mahatma Gandhi had to be mentioned just as a, for the sake of it. But actually the flow of history was projected as if Ashoka, Akbar and Nehru. That's all that is to India. And that is why this image building of these two personalities from history was made. And that is why I have focused on that how the image is much bigger and stronger than the reality.
Right, sir. So next chapter you dwell with how Sufism and how India softened during the Middle Ages, and Hinduism is always known to be very accommodative, sweet, tolerant, and dharmic. Again, excessive goodness. Excessive goodness, I believe, is bad, sir, in this context.
Yeah, we call it Sadgun Vikruti. So, too much of being good is very detrimental for you. So, Sufism is projected as a very humanitarian face of Islam, and we call them as Sufi saints. But there was nothing saint-like in them. Actually, the fact is that you take Mohiduddin Chishti or Nizamuddin Awliya or take any big name from Sufism, all of them came to India with the invaders. They came with the idea of participating in the jihad. They actually participated in the jihad, and they never used their influence on these sultans to stop the massacre of Hindus or the destruction of Hindu temples. In fact, they encouraged them. So if any sultan was taking a moderate view, they used to prevail on him that no, this is not permitted in Islam. You can't be soft with the kafirs or idolaters. So that was the approach of these Sufis. And exactly opposite to that is the image which is projected, that they were great saints, they were the unifiers of Hindus and Muslims, and so on and so forth. So such a distortion and such a deception has to be countered somewhere, and that is why I thought of writing this. And I have written with all evidences that whatever has been told to us, whatever has been fed to us, is complete lie. I mean, I can understand some degree of difference, that if they were, let's say, 50% good and they are shown 90% good, I can understand. But there was no trace of goodness in them as far as saintlyhood is concerned. And still they are being projected as the saints. And I've given one small example, I'm sure you remember, of Sayyid Salar Masood.
Yes.
He was a nephew of Mahmud of Ghazni. And when Somnath temple was broken, in fact, he was the one who insisted with his uncle that, no, you must break the lingam. And then the pieces of the lingam were taken to Ghazni and used in the steps of a masjid so that it can be trampled upon by the believers. And this person, when Mahmud died, he again came to India with a big army, and there was a big war in which Suhail Dev defeated his army and killed him, and he was buried in one place there. After that, slowly a mazar was built there, and over a period of time, he was touted as a saint, as a Sufi saint. So a bigot who insisted that the Somnath should be broken, and he again broke many other temples also, he has now become a big Sufi saint. Even today, वहाँ पे मेले लगते हैं, and हमारे हिंदू लोग जाके वहाँ चद्दर चढ़ाते हैं और पूजा करते हैं. And all his sardars also in that entire area of Satrik and parts of Uttar Pradesh, there are many such places where the mazars of all those invaders have now become places of pilgrimage. So that is what we call as Sadguna Vikruti, and too much of goodness of Hindus, which has been extremely detrimental. And we should call a spade a spade. Why we should try to hide things, and why we need to project something which was not true. So that is why this Sufism is something which has been which is a complete fabrication, and we need to understand that.
Correct. The result, ideally, you have summarized all of this, and then in the chapter 6, you dwell with the results of all of this negationism, the softness, this apologetic mindset about the fault lines, everything. I just summarize it, sir, like the Indian socio-cultural economic backwardness and the reason and narratives. So basically, we have got into, at least till 2014, we have gotten into a vicious cycle of falling again and again, and then the cycle repeats again and again. So much so, I think sometime in 2008 or 9, there was a movie called Slumdog Millionaire. People started celebrating it. People wanted to see Hungry India, Poor India. Like in Munna Bhai, some says, Sanjay Dutt says, Hungry India, Poor India chahiye, photo chahiye, aise chahiye. So to top it off all that, I think Amartya Sen, also sitting somewhere in England, wrote a book, The Argumentative Indian.
Yes.
So these are just ploys and attempts to go down a resurgent rising India. These have been consistently being done by the ecosystem, left, far liberal, pseudo-liberal, secular ecosystem. And they've been consistent at their nefarious designs, sir. Hats off to them for that. And
Yes.
that is something which we need to address it. And you have addressed it through your book very well, sir. Then comes the myth-busting section, where you have used practices that existed then, which were used to amplify the fault lines. For example, education and women's education. Then comes Rahul Gandhi in Arnab shows and says, women's empowerment, women empowerment. So then Johar and Sati, child marriage, caste system, then the poverty angle, then the insecurity and the anarchy. Probably poverty resulted in the loot by the Mughals, and then what British inherited was India, which was in complete disarray, and there was some sort of an anarchy which existed, and which they exploited to the hilt. Like how you pointed out, they came to trade, but then they realized that the country was ripe for colonizing, and they colonized us.
Yes.
I would like to quote what you've written, sir, in page number 334. Hyun Sang, who traveled to India in 1629 Common Era, writes about his experience of people of India. In money matters, they were without craft, and in administrating justice, they are considerate. They are not deceitful or treacherous in their conduct, and they are faithful in their oaths and promises. With respect to criminals, these are few in number and only occasionally troublesome. It is amply clear from this that crime was negligible and an atmosphere of security pervaded the populace in that period. Wonderful, sir. So the practices, how the half-truths, or rather the falsehood and the misunderstandings from the British perspective, the British had obviously no idea, and they had a very dubious and devious mindset of wanting to colonize us. And part of them, like Macaulay and other set of people, wanted to just divide and be gulams to the Queen. So what are these practices, and what is your interpretation, sir?
Actually, what has been projected is that when the British came, the Indian society was morally so degenerate, and it had hit such rock bottom, and that is why British could easily, colonize us. So what I have tried to show is that many of the ills that had crept into our society were the result of 1,000 years of torture and atrocities heaped by the Islamic invaders. Like, for example, defacing women by cutting off their hair when the husband dies was primarily to save them from the Islamic invaders. That any good-looking woman used to be snatched away and taken to the slave market in Middle East and Iran and things like that. So there were many such things which Hindus did to save their families and their women and their children somehow from the evil eye of the Islamic invaders. And these finally resulted into certain practices which were very harmful to the Hindu religion. but they were felt required because to save the people and the religion from the Islamic invaders. So that was the reason why there were certain bad practices which were there in the Hindu religion at the time of British invasion. And moreover, the British again further amplified those things, like sati, for example. I have written in detail about it, that initially the East India Company had not given any permission to the British missionaries to conduct their activities in India, because they felt that interfering with the religion of local people will harm their trading interests. So they said that we don't want missionaries here. So then missionary lobby carried out a huge campaign in Britain, in UK, to tell the people there that the Indian society is so degenerate, the women are suffering so much. Every whose husband dies is burnt on his pyre and against her will and all those things. So it was all certain ills were there in a very, very small, but they were blown out of proportion. And for example, East India Company's own survey had estimated that in 10 years, I have given the years also, 10 years, about 4,000 women went sati in the entire country. So that means about 400 women per year. And they have also gone on record saying that in most of the, in fact, they didn't find any case where it was forced. It was always voluntary. Of course, even voluntary was not a good practice. It had to be removed. But our own people were working towards that. Like Swami Narayan in Gujarat was actually carrying out a big campaign that sati should be stopped. Ramdas Swami in Maharashtra had said that it is not correct. In Peshwai, it was banned. In Ahilya Devi again was totally against it. So there were Hindu thinkers and scholars and rulers who were actually already working against sati. But this 400 per year, which was found out by the East India Company survey, the missionaries started telling in England that 50,000 women are being burned, 33,000, somewhere they have said 33, somewhere they have said 50,000, somewhere they have said 44,000, whatever figure came to their mind, they used to throw. And they took this campaign to such a crescendo in UK that people put pressure on the government that no, our missionaries must be allowed to go there, because otherwise this society will go to dogs. They are already so degenerate that to save these women from the atrocities of the Hindu religion, missionaries should be allowed to go. And finally, in 1813, the British Parliament took a decision that missionaries should be allowed. And I have given the gist of discussions that took place in the British Parliament at that time. And many people who were working with East India Company and who had a long experience of working in India have spoken very clearly and solidly that no, missionaries should not be allowed. Hindu religion doesn't need any intervention from our side. They have spoken glowingly about Indians and Hindu religion. But missionaries were so keen on getting the permission that they completely blew away these opinions of the small number of East India Company officials, and they insisted and prevailed upon British Parliament to finally give that permission. That is why they kind of amplified many times over whatever ills were there in the Hindu community at that time.
Then comes in 1947, sir. That's chapter number 7. Plying the spindle certainly yields yarn, but independence, query. Very rightly put, sir. Squarely, the independence struggle and the victory of the independence has been attributed to the Congress Party and Indian National Congress and Mahatma Gandhi. But the events that led up to the British giving up on India, and also so many other geopolitical happenings, you have very well covered, sir, like the American War of Independence, the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, India's freedom movement on its own, the armed revolutionaries. So there say several individual personalities, kings, revolutionaries who fought like Birsa Munda, Vasudev Balwant Phadke. We have rightfully given a lot of coverage on this, which has broadly gone untold in our history books. Really a revelation. So this book has been a real revelation, and business of distorting history has been successfully bust by you, sir, through this book.
Thank
I
you.
request all our readers from the Verandah Club and also other readers, other people watching, to please read this book and give it to your children. Most importantly, we urge you to give it to the children so that the next generation, the message gets passed on. And let us not repeat the mistake of the past. Any words, please?
Yeah, finally, the purpose of writing this book was that our identity has been completely distorted because of wrong history. And a country without identity has got no future. So if we have to stand up and claim our place under the sun, we have to first identify who we are, from where we have become, how have we have reached up to this place. The answers to these questions actually gives us our identity. And because of this defective and false history, we have completely lost our identity. We have a faceless existence, and that has cost us a great deal in the past. And even now, though we are standing up and claiming our legacy and heritage, but still our young generation and the generations to come, we should stop giving them the distorted history which has been deliberately and consciously created by the imperialists, and claim our own narrative, claim our own history, and claim our own identity. And for that, I have written this book. That's why I'm bringing it out in so many languages. Right now, it is available in Marathi, Hindi, English, and Gujarati. But we plan to bring it out in other languages also. Whosoever reads it tells me that you must bring it out in every Indian language. All Indians must know what is the true history of our country. And that is the idea. That is the mission that I have taken. So whosoever calls me to speak about this, I go there. I don't think about any other thing but spreading this message. And that's why I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity of speaking to your team and your members. And I hope we will carry this flame further and forward.
Thank you so much, sir. Any questions from the audience? We will take a few questions. I can see a lot of people are interested in this book, and a lot of accolades pouring in. Tamil, we'll see what can be done, sir. If we can translate this book in Tamil, I think we can work on this.
I will appreciate if you can help me in this.
Yes, sir. We will certainly do our best, sir.
Good evening.
Yes.
Anand Narsiman from Coimbatore, sir.
Hi, Anand.
Sir. Yeah, thank you for the session, sir. Wonderful book. We would like to buy this and read and refer this book to all our friends and relatives.
Thank you.
So, sir, I think our central government, Modi ji government is taking a lot of steps to retrieve our past lost glory, like
Yes.
NEP, implementation of NEP. Recently, there has been a news that you and Jaganji have mentioned a couple of times of the Ahom dynasty. So
Right.
that Assam's Ahom burial sites has been included in UNESCO's heritage site.
Right.
So that is one of the, but it has been approved by Modi ji, and UNESCO is including that list. Then I think a lot of funds has been allotted for the study on the restoration of Saraswati river.
Right.
So what is your take on that NEP, sir? Then what are the other steps we should do from our side? Can you please throw some light?
Yeah, I think there is a welcome change after 2014. There is no doubt about it. Now our government is no more apologetic of its Hindu identity, and we have to unapologetically, loudly proclaim that India is a Hindu nation. There is no doubt about it. Nobody can deny that, and that is happening for the first time, which is a great thing. Like so many changes have happened. Varanasi has come up, then Ujjain has come up in a refurbished and renovated manner, and it is attracting huge number of devotees. I'm told that during the last 1 year, 3 crore people went to Goa and 10 crore people went to Varanasi. So culture is good economics also, one can say. So a lot of good things are happening. I think what needs to be done now is history textbooks have to be corrected, because howsoever we may try, how many people we can reach. And what happens is, if I tell a student that this is the true history, but in his answer paper he will have to write what appears in the textbook, and that is still the old history is being told. The distorted history is being taught. So changing textbooks is very important, and I think under the new education policy, even that will happen. So I am very sure and hopeful that that will happen, and this momentum of awakening that is happening in our country should be maintained, is what I think.
Rightly put, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Shilpa Acharya ji, I think you have a question. You may go ahead.
Thank you so much, and it was a very wonderful session.
Thank you.
Kannadadalli ಹೇಳಬಹುದಾ? ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡಬಹುದಾ? Can it possible to translate it?
In Kannada?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have plans to bring it out in Kannada.
Okay. Actually, ಈಗ NEP ಬಂದಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ರಾಮರಾಜ್ಯ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ಟೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಬುಕ್ ಗಳನ್ನ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಸೀರಿಯಸ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಇನಿಸಿಯೇಷನ್ taken by Karnataka government. Plus, sir, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಒಂದು ನನಗೆ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಆಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕಾಗಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಇದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆಗಕ್ಕಾಗಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಐ ಮಿಸ್ಡ್. ಐ ಡೋಂಟ್ ನೋ ವೆದರ್ ಸರ್ ಸ್ಪೋಕ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದಟ್. ನನಗೆ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಯೂರಿಯಾಸಿಟಿನೂ ಇದೆ, ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಯಾರೋ ಒಬ್ರು ಹೇಳಿರುವಂತ ವಿಚಾರ ಇದು. 1983 ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂದಿರಾ ಗಾಂಧಿ Can I?
Yes.
Yeah. 1983 ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂದಿರಾ ಗಾಂಧಿ ಯೋಗವನ್ನ ರಿಕ್ರೂಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನ, ಯೋಗ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ರಿಕ್ರೂಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಅಂತ. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಹಿಂದೂ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್, ಹಿಂದೂಯಿಸಮ್ ಇನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ಇಂದ ಬಂದಿದೆ, ಅಂಡ್ ಇಟ್ ಸ್ಪಾಯಿಲ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು, ವೆದರ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ರೈಟ್ ಆರ್ ನೋ ರಾಂಗ್ ಅದನ್ನ ನಂಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಬಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೆ ಆಗಿರುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಇನ್ಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಗಳನ್ನ ನಾವು ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ, ಮೇ ಬಿ ಶಿ ವಾಸ್ ರೈಟ್ ಅಂತ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನನ್ಗೆ ಯಾರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು, ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಕೊಟ್ರು, ಮೇ ಬಿ ಅವ್ರ ರೈಟ್ ಇರಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸಿದೆ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಕಡೆ ಯೋಗವನ್ನ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಡಿನೈಯಿಂಗ್. ಈಗ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಅದು ಯೋಗ ಡೇ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ್ಲಿಂದ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ಕಾಂಟ್ರವರ್ಸಿಗಳನ್ನ ಮಾಡಿ, ಕೆಲವೊಂದಷ್ಟು ಓಂಕಾರವನ್ನ ತೆಗೆದು ಸೂರ್ಯ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಎಲ್ಲ ತೆಗ್ದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಇಂದಿರಾ ಗಾಂಧಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ನನ್ನ ಒಪಿನಿಯನ್. ಸೊ ಈ ತರದೆಲ್ಲವೂ ಕೂಡ ಚೇಂಜಸ್ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಎಲ್ಲಾ ತುಂಬಾ ತರದ ಡಿಸ್ಟರ್ಬೆನ್ಸ್ ಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಈಗ ಒಂದ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನಾವು ಚೇಂಜಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಟು ವೇದಿಕ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ಹಾಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಒಂದ್ ಕಡೆ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ನಿಸ್ತಿದೆ. ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ 2014 ಇಂದ ಈ ಕಡೆಗೆ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಏನಿತ್ತು, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸೆಷನ್ಸ್ ಏನಿತ್ತು, ಇಟ್ಸ್ ವಂಡರ್ಫುಲ್. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ಒಂದು ಸಂಶಯನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಐ ಲರ್ನ್ ಮೆನಿ ಥಿಂಗ್. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಅನ್ನ ಅವರು ಹೇಳುವಾಗ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ವೆರಿ ವಂಡರ್ಫುಲ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಮೈಂಡ್ ಬ್ಲೋಯಿಂಗ್. ಅದನ್ನ ಇಷ್ಟನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕು ನಾನು ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾನು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದು. ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇದನ್ನ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರೋ ಅಥವಾ ಮೇನ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಸರ್, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಸೋ ಮಚ್.
Thank you. Can someone translate what she said? Because
Sir, I thought you know Kannada. Okay. Anyways, I think it was kind words from Shilpa Acharya ji. and I could make out that she enjoyed the show, and she had a few words on Indira Gandhi also. I think we missed out.
Yeah.
So I think it's we'll cover it, sir.
Okay.
Really blessed to have all of you write this kind of work and take it to the masses at large. Thank you so much, and a big thanks to the discerning audience who have patiently heard the whole thing and have been very kind and generous in appreciating it. And I do hope that on the 30th of January, we have a show with M.R. Venkatesh Rangan, and Anish Gokhale. Three of them, I would be just the back end moderating, but the three of them would be talking about the First Republic, about how Nana Fadnavis established the first Karbari Sarkar, defeated the British. So this is the kind of work we do we have been doing, and we will be doing at the Verandah Club. I thank Shefali Vaidyaji for putting me across to you, sir. And she's
for putting me across to you.
Yes, and big thanks. She's a good advisor, and also she was a mentor for us for the Western Ghats Lit Fest. We had a Lit Fest, first of its kind in Coimbatore, on the 8th and 9th of October. We wish to grow and carry the values of Hindu Dharma in the right sense to Bharat, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And 74th Republic Day, we take leave for now, and hope to see you soon, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Please follow us on the Verandah Club on Twitter. You can keep abreast, and also I'll be sharing it with Abhijit Joag also, and also the Indic authors. You may retweet, share to your networks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.